folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Where do we start? Where do we start, people? Those of you who stayed up last night to watch the debate, we had some fun last night. After the debate, we came on air and we had some fun with all our good people. You know, we decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and do it. We had some fun. But hey, it was difficult as hell, brothers and sisters. According to, first of all, welcome aboard Bruce, welcome aboard Paul Fleming, welcome aboard Bruce Pollard, AVQ, Michael Rudnin, and of course, Paul Fleming checking in from ATL, Bridge, MCP is with us as well. Oh, people, this is America. How do you feel about the debate? You know what? I have the phone number on as well as the link for, actually let me go ahead and put the link for the show should also be in an area. Hello, Linda E. Welcome aboard. What I'm going to do is earlier on, I'm going to just put the link up here just in case somebody wants to call in. Most of you always, including last night, we only had 2 people call in. Most people wanted to do everything by text, but that's fine too. I love you all no matter what you do. Here is the Zoom information. You can either come in via telephone number 346-248-7799, code 254-600-9091, or just click on the link that I just placed both on YouTube, the inside of Facebook, and everywhere else if you want to come in as well. That was a debate. Well, it wasn't a debate. It wasn't. I don't know what to call. What? Give me some messages in there. What would you call what occurred last night? I don't know what it was. All I know is that if you take a look at the papers around the country, it doesn't speak well for who we are as a country. It does not speak well for who we are. So I am going to start the show with the deconstruction. The person that I love to watch deconstruct what occurs more than anybody else is a guy named Steve Schmidt, former Republican. And I want you to hear what he had to say, and then we'll take it on the other side. Brother Steve Schmidt is back with a great critique on the debate where he pretty much annihilated Donald Trump. Check this out. Let's take it on the other side.
Well, I think that this debate was a debacle for Donald Trump, and I think it's the beginning of the end of the presidency. What you'll see in the next couple of days is movement by at least a couple of points, probably outside the margin of error, and you'll really see the gravel start to slip and all of this start to go down. One thing you won't see tomorrow is any United States senators out there talking about what a great job Donald Trump did tonight. So let's just back up for a second. What this was tonight was a disgrace beyond any ability of any of the 3 of us to articulate. It was a national humiliation. You saw a president who was unhinged, lying, sweaty, disheveled, angry, petulant, and most important of all, completely incapable of making any type of argument about why he should have 4 more years. He appeared to be crazy for most of the debate. And so Biden had some great moments on COVID, on the economy, on the military that Trump called suckers and losers. And the reality of 2016 is this. Whomever that race was about was the person who was losing the campaign. And Donald Trump was losing that campaign for 98% of the race until the last week, when James Comey made it about Hillary Clinton, just enough that Donald Trump won by 78,000 votes. There is a mythology about the 2016 race that the polling was wrong. The polling was not wrong in 2016. The polling showed that Hillary Clinton would win the popular vote by about 2.5%. Now, she should have been in Michigan. She should have been in these other states. The Hillary Clinton campaign shouldn't have stopped their polling operation in September. That's all water under the bridge. Here's the point. 2020 and 2016 are different elections, and everybody in the media is understating Biden's strength right now and overstating Trump's because no one wants to be wrong again. Joe Biden has the biggest lead of any presidential candidate in the modern era. It's the biggest, the broadest, the most durable lead that you've seen in the modern presidential era. And that lead is going to get bigger, not smaller, after this debate. What we saw tonight was, no pun intended, the real Donald Trump. And he's completely unhinged. You saw tonight the first American in 4 years to stand on a stage with this lying, blustering buffoon and try to hold him to account. Joe Biden didn't do anything to disgrace himself tonight. And when you have somebody who's up there breaking the rules, has no compunction whatsoever about doing anything at any time so long as it benefits him, that's what you get. But this debate was about one thing in the end tonight. One thing that matters happened in this debate tonight. Donald Trump intimated and threatened violence against this country if he loses the election. Make no mistake about it. It's exactly what he did, exactly what he meant at the end. And these Proud Boys are a white supremacist neo-Nazi group. And before we got 1 hour after this debate, they have a new shoulder patch for their camouflage outfits, right? They call them to violence.
And that is the biggest takedown of Donald Trump that I heard on all throughout all the networks. He was so coherent in stringing it all together. Donald Trump threatened America. Donald Trump looked unhinged. Donald Trump was completely looking crazy. No one can say it any better. Steve Schmidt, it's just about over. Okay, let me go to the phones. 828, come on in. Oops, no, that's not what I want to do. Let's see. 828, come on in, 828. I turn it down so that we don't get the double speak. Come on in, 828.
Hey, Egberto, how are you?
All right, who am I speaking with?
This is Hope in North Carolina.
Hope, how you doing, Hope?
I'm doing great. Hey, listen, I thought that was a good debate last night.
You thought, okay, explain, please.
Well, I mean, I managed to send the president a mask today. It's a white satin KKK hood so that he'll be well protected for the next debate. And, you know, all I can say is God bless Mary Trump for writing the book, because I think that was part of what's really put the president on defense. I think that's been a major embarrassment to that family.
Yes.
And, you know, all we need is 2 or 3 more of these debates so that he can really show his you-know-what, because the country is I think united, Proud Boys aside. And I live out here in North Carolina in the western part of the state, and there are plenty of those groups around, but and they're pretty severe people, but, you know, I mean, you'd have to be double crazy to listen to what the president said last night.
You know, I think, look, you're so right, my dear. I have 2 videos that I'm playing afterwards when I'm done talking to you, where I'm going to show what's happening. You know, there are a lot of good Republicans out there that don't fall into this white supremacist mentality or any of that. And I'm playing 2 of them as soon as I get off with you that I think you're going to like.
Okay. Well, fantastic. And thanks for all your work. I mean, you've been putting out a lot of fantastic stuff over the last month, and I think it's awesome. And I really wish, you know, I mean, I just have to say, nothing against Joe Biden, but I really wish that Senator Sanders was still in the mix of things, given everything that has still happened, because I think he'd be doing a brilliant job. So that's the only thing about the debates that really makes me a little bit sad. But Other than that, I thought it was a good debate, and that's my response.
Well, Sean King had something interesting to say. He's like, "My God, I wish it was Bernie Sanders who were answering those questions, or the ones who was talking to Donald Trump, because he really thinks he would have put Donald Trump in his place."
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Well,
But,
Hope, thank you.
I think,
Go ahead.
yeah. No, I think that Vice President Biden did what he tried to do. I think, you're kind of up against real whale when you go in that arena, and it'll be interesting to see how they behave in the next round. So thanks for the coverage. The coverage has been great on your part.
Thank you so kindly. Hope you have a wonderful day. Okay.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Take care now. Bye bye. All right, folks. That was Hope from Carolina del Norte. Now go ahead and people think, well, these debates don't have any issue, they don't change minds or whatever. What they always do is take care of those people that are on the margins. They can say, you know what, I've had it. I know what I needed to do. Now I am sure what I need to do. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side.
I want to introduce you to one voter who we met last November. Her name is Katie Morse. She's a mom of two, and she voted for Donald Trump in 2016. Now, she has since come to regret that vote. And I want to play you some sound from when we first met her almost a year ago, when she was conflicted because she still felt aligned with Republican values and wasn't sure what to do next. Take a listen.
I feel like on the Democratic side, it's so far, I think they're just so concerned with going so far left and like getting all these people who are on that side of it. They're not willing to kind of see us people who are kind of in the middle.
And Craig, I have Katie with me here today to get her reaction to what we saw last night. Katie, you are a mom of two boys, and you told me you felt a little bit of kinship with Chris Wallace last night.
Absolutely. I don't think, every parent in America or elementary school teacher saw that childish behavior going on the stage.
Katie, we just played some sound from last year when you were saying you didn't feel like the Democrats were focused on voters in the middle like yourself. Right. Today, and after what you saw last night, which candidate, which party do you feel like is doing a better job reaching out to moderates like you?
Well, I definitely would say the Biden campaign is. I thought he really spoke to the American people last night. He looked directly into the camera, was empathetic, really tried to place himself, I felt like, in our shoes. And he really stood up and, did his best to brush off any of the Trump attacks.
Now, the suburbs, particularly in Michigan, are always crucial to elections. Donald Trump has been targeting particularly what he calls suburban housewives.
Right.
You are a mom living in the suburbs. How did you feel about his messaging last night? And you and I have talked a lot about race in particular as an issue that's important to you.
I just found he was really offensive as an educated professional in addition to being a mom. I mean, just the fact that he wants to cut out diversity training, says those are sick ideas. What's a very sick idea is the fact that we're not talking about diversity, whether that's racial or socioeconomic or religious diversity. That's what we need, and we need to embrace it. If we really want to make America great again, we really need to embrace all people and ideas.
And the suburbs here in Grand Rapids are changing. How do you feel about that?
I think it's great. I want my kids to grow up in a really diverse environment. I want them to think about different ideas, formulate their own opinions. So I think I embrace it and encourage it.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news. Now, you take a look at that woman, right? She's a moderate Republican. It's clearly evident. But those are the people Donald Trump thought were the people of 1955, how people like her would have thought in 1955. It is wonderful that we have a whole group of young people now who sees the world for the way it really is, who understands humanity as it really is, and not the fiction that was created by those few men so that they could create an economic system based on the degradation of people to enrich just a few. She is the embodiment of the future, and a future where everyone feels a camaraderie, a future where everyone loves and understands everyone's humanity. That woman there, that's the future. And that is what Donald Trump fails to understand. He is still trying to crop a new group of people that keeps the old stuff from the past, the old evil stuff from the past on which this economic system was built. And they will fail because good women like that is the future. And check out this guy. This guy is saying, I've had it, and I'm a military guy.
He's been voting Republican all of his life. He is a military veteran. He's a former Army Ranger. And Mitch, first I got to ask, did you even get through the whole debate last night?
I would like to say that I did, but no, I couldn't watch. It was disappointing. It was embarrassing. It was disturbing in equal measure.
And Mitch, as someone who has served our country and cares about our standing on the world stage, what did you make of what you did see last night?
Things that I learned in the military include leadership. And for me, leadership really devolves to two core fundamentals. It's integrity and it's care and concern for the men and women that you lead. We have not seen that in President Trump. I don't believe that he has any care or concern for our troops. Another thing I learned is that the military is one of the few places where honest mistakes are welcomed. They're learned from. And that lies kill people. People die because of lies. And Donald Trump has lied to us. And lies should be brutally and extravagantly punished, and rightly so. When he knew the danger of COVID, he lied to us. He could have told us right then and there, wear masks, socially distance, instead of politicizing it and making wearing masks is something that only weaker people did. And how many thousands of people would be alive right now? So no, he's not the leader that I'd like to see at the head of our military.
And Mitch, you have voted Republican in every election since you were eligible to vote. What do you say to other lifelong Republicans who might be uncomfortable with Donald Trump but don't necessarily align with Democratic policies?
And I don't. Even though I'm going to be voting for Vice President Biden, there are a number of his policies that I disagree with. I'm a staunch Second Amendment supporter. I'm pro-life. But I also believe that the danger of another 4 years of the Trump presidency far outweigh those. And I truly believe that as the leader of just one branch, one co-equal branch of our government, that there are other opportunities to explore those policies and to push for what I believe. I would encourage those other Republicans, look at the other men and women that have come out against President Trump. The Lincoln voters, the Republican voters against Trump, the veterans against Trump. I'm very comfortable in the company in which I stand.
He's very comfortable within the company that he stands. And guys, I made a little mistake here. When I started the program, I didn't introduce the show or give you what the title of the show was. So the title of the show is Debate 2020 Deconstruction by Dr. David Campt, who we're going to play in the interview in the second half of the show, and Steve Schmidt, Republicans Flee and Russia. So anyhow, as it turns out, Steve Schmidt completely annihilates Donald Trump like we showed earlier. Several real Republicans are choosing the country over party, like we showed the young woman and the young man that just now. And I want to show you an interesting thing that occurred today. As we are talking about the future, the Republicans decided they wanted to have a hearing with Comey and all these other things related to Russia. I guess they're trying to say Russia is not real. What's occurring in Russia with Russia and the election is not real. Well, they brought in Comey, and Comey kind of set the stage because Comey did not fall for the bull. And I want you to listen. This is a very short piece. Listen to what Comey had to say, and then we'll take it on the other side.
Are you concerned that Trump will embrace and use Russian interference efforts to his advantage, excuse me, as he did in 2016?
Well, I'm a private citizen now, so as a private citizen, yes.
If you had to convey one message to American people about the persistent threat of Russian interference in our democracy or any foreign interference, what would it be?
Know that a nation that does not have America's best interest at heart wants to reelect Donald Trump. Let that sink in. Let it guide how you think about the way we ought to conduct ourselves going forward.
You know, that is another way of saying Comey implies a vote for Trump is a vote for Putin. Just take that to the bank. A vote for Trump is a vote for Putin. You're voting for Trump, you're voting for Putin as this president of the United States of America. And if you doubt it, ask why is it that Putin can put a bounty on U.S. soldiers and Trump does nothing about it? Why is it that Putin can go ahead and have his tanks in Syria almost wreck into American tanks, and Trump does absolutely nothing about it? How is it that their planes can come and fly right next to ours to endanger them and to show we are in command, and Trump does nothing about it? Those were messages that Putin wanted to send to Americans. I am in control of your president. I run your president. These things do not happen in isolation. Putin wanted it to be clear that he knows that there are a certain number of people that will continue to vote for Trump. And in the process, if Trump is reelected, you are electing Putin. Don't ever dare forget it. It's amazing. These are the people who used to like to call themselves the glory, glory, hallelujah people, the patriots. Really? Really? Come on now, let's get real about how these things work. Okay, we are close to playing the video of Dr. David Campt. But before we do that, I have to try to get a little piece in as far as asking people to join Politics Done Right. So if you are on YouTube, there are two ways right now sitting down on YouTube that you can be a part of the Politics Done Right family. Please just click on that join button and become a member. If you become a member right now, it's pretty cheap. It'll flash on the screen and say, hey, guess what? You got a new member, and I'll call you out and whatever message you want to do if you click a join. Alternatively, on YouTube, you can give us what's called a super chat. If you click on that $sign, you can also click on, you can see the thing come up, and a super chat of whatever you want to say to us, we'll do for you. Those of you know that we have a new book out. It's called It's Worth It, How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Neighbors, and Friends. Please go ahead and you can get that book at Amazon. That book at Amazon, I just put the link that went over to YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, and Facebook, so you can click on that to get the book. What we also really would love for you to be a part of is our Patreon. Patreon are people, oh, you got the book, Linda E. Thank you so kindly. Did you like it? Oh, you said excellent. Thank you so kindly for buying the book. Please, if you like that book, go ahead and give it a review at Amazon. That helps people kind of get a feeling of, yes, we like this book, etc., etc., etc. So if you bought the book, please go ahead and give me a review on Amazon. You can also become a Patreon, and that is at politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, politicsdoneright.com/Patreon, and that is how you can become a patron of Politics Done Right. And let me play a little video that I just did to kind of tell you what we do, because every now and then I forget to say something or whatever. So let me just go ahead and play this video here, and then I'll continue with my pitch for about 30 seconds, and then we'll go into the interview. We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join. Anyhow, folks, so again, if you're on YouTube, you can click on join. If you're on, and if you're not on YouTube, if you're just on Facebook or anywhere, you can still join our YouTube. I think our YouTube membership is kind of like the cheapest one, and we'll do some fun stuff. There is a link. Go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube, politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. Anyhow, folks, I have an interview this morning. I said, need to get somebody to talk about the debate. I think we need to get other people's input as far as how they saw the debate. So I got this stuff. I got this man is Dr. David Campt. He's a facilitator, a discourse, somebody who teaches how to do real discourse. And I decided to go ahead and say, let's go ahead and interview him and see what he had to say about the debate. So here comes that interview, and then we'll take it on the other side. Here we go. Welcome to one more edition of Politics on Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. I'm here with Dr. David Campt. Dr. David Campt is what I like to call an orator, a discusser, a talker of items of importance to our national dialogue. Welcome aboard, Dr. Campt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. It's great to be here.
Great. Well, look, last night's debate. How would you characterize last night's debate?
Well, I think it's kind of sad, really. I'm not sure that advanced anything. I think that while we know that a lot of people have made up their minds, I do think that it is useful for these debates to elevate us, to give us a sense that we're part of something larger, that they're in a larger tradition of American political discourse. And that debate did not do that. So I think I think a lot of people feel vaguely unclean about it and dissatisfied and not informed. So I don't think it accomplished that goal of having a national ritual that we can all get behind and feel like we're part of something that's been going on for a lot of years. It did not accomplish that. So it's unfortunate.
Now you are someone who works with major corporations, et cetera, in trying to create good dialogue among people, maybe adversaries or otherwise. There was no sense that in that particular discussion, even using the moderator, that somehow we could have gotten to that plane where that could begin. Your thoughts?
Right. So I think that's right. But I think what's important to lift up is that there's a distinction between the debate that we perhaps need in a public setting so we can analyze candidates, and a dialogue which we need to have in private settings or even corporate settings. So here's the difference, and it's this important distinction to notice. A debate is a system of exchange in which your objective, each person's objective, is to find out what's wrong with the other person's point of view and to potentially lift that up. And you're not really lifting it up for them, you're really lifting it up for the sake of onlookers in most cases, right? So now there's a value in that. That's because people need to make a choice about who to vote for, and highlighting differences is valuable for that. When we as citizens or members of a community or members of a company are in actual in community with other people and trying to come to common decisions, we need to be in a more of a dialogue mode as well as a debate mode. So if I'm talking to you, we're working for the same company, we're managing a company, I need to figure out why do you see something differently than I see it, and what's true in what you're saying, and you need to look at what's true in what I'm saying so we can make a collective decision. We're more of a dialogue mode than a debate mode, which is what we might need to do if we're squaring off our ideas so that other people can choose between us. So I would say that the thing last night was not edifying, but it's a debate anyway, and it has a role in our culture. But it's not. They should not be trying to have a dialogue. They should be trying to have a debate. But even as a debate, it was pretty god awful, actually.
Now, do you think that was planned by the president in order to maybe make it so chaotic that we really don't discuss the issues, which would really then have to discuss his failures?
Well, he's, I would say that's very possible. It's hard to know. I think the difficulty with understanding his behavior is that on the one hand, he is a kind of a shrewd, savvy media manipulator. So it might have been on purpose. But on the other hand, he's also a very impulsive person. And so it's hard to know whether or not what you saw is a result of a kind of impulsivity. He's thin-skinned, he's impulsive, and he wants to lash out and defend himself at every turn. So it's hard to know. I certainly think that one of the impacts of his behavior, whether it was planned or not, was to depress some people's vote. I think from a political analysis standpoint, I think that kind of behavior does not endear people to him. It might fire up some elements of his base, but he probably loses more votes than he gains. But it might have the effect of depressing people's enthusiasm. That also might be true. It's hard for me to know which is more true, but I think it has the effect of getting people less interested in the election. It's going to make a few of his base more interested in him because they like that pugilistic nature. It's going to make some people on the other side fired up because they say we got to get rid of this guy. But then there's going to be some number of people who are like, oh, this whole thing is just ridiculous. So it's hard to know. I think we need to acknowledge the weights of all of those, but we don't know them.
I have always wondered when people say that, however, that that the debate is going to really depress people's voting because of how nasty it was or whatever. I thought that the Biden fundraising that came across yesterday pretty much proved that, hey, we need to do something here. We just can't have this guy. That's just the impression that I got.
No, I hear you on that, but I mean, I hear you on that. That's why I said this. There's effects upon all three.
Right.
There's an effect on Biden's base. There's an effect on his base, but there is this unknown effect on the people in the middle. Let's remember, 100 million people don't vote. 40% of the American public doesn't vote. In fact, I have a project called the Voice Project. People can get to it at thedialoguecompany.com/voice, and it's all about how we bring to bear best practices in conversation to persuade people to vote or just to have a better conversation. But the reason I created so much around persuading people to vote is because 100 million people don't vote. So I'm just saying that is a not insubstantial, that's a substantial part of the American public, and we need to think about how do we motivate them and what's the impact of something like this on them.
Now, let's get a little bit substantive with what was attempted in the debate now. When we talk about race, it was interesting to me because Donald Trump has been trying to make inroads into, let's go specifically with Black people. And they gave him one specific question yesterday. It kind of befuddled me how he answered it, talking about being very good for, let's say, African Americans. Well, I rather use the word Black people, being good
for Black, that's fine.
to Black people. And then he immediately went on to law and order. Now, it concerned me in the beginning the way that it was set up by Wallace, where they equated, or in the same line they had race and law and order.
Well, race and violence. Race and violence.
Race and violence, which concerned me in the first place, why those two topics or those two things were linked together. Your thoughts?
Well, I noticed it too. I thought I was, my tendency is to try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so in doing that, I thought that what Chris Wallace gave himself was the frame of talking about race and police violence, as well as race and community violence. And what are these protests about? These protests are about unwarranted police violence. And that has to do, and that's racialized. So while I did have some suspicions and concerns, I given Chris Wallace benefit of the doubt, I thought that maybe he's going to bring up other issues. Like for some people, violence is primarily race and police violence, and for other people, it's a different thing. It's violence. So that frame I thought was a large frame. They didn't bring up really police violence, so it might be that my benefit of the doubt was too much beneficial, right? That very well could be. But I think that what you saw was the way, and it was also the way that Trump moved the conversation. He moved it to the law and order and tried to get Biden to say, you don't even say law and order, which I think that was an interesting tactic. I mean, one of the things that, what he did, what Biden did was say, well, I believe in the rule of law, which is different than the law and order. So part of what is also just interesting to notice is that Trump knows that the law and order thing is a kind of a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle. He's trying to get Biden to say that. I thought Biden's attempt to Biden's avoiding that was probably smart. He probably should have said, yeah, I don't like to say law and order because it seems like the way that term has gotten positioned, that says that it seems like it's an it's a phrase that says we need to suppress certain groups. I also know, Mr. Trump, you don't like to say Black Lives Matter either. Why is that? Like something to say that and it's unfortunate that these things are on opposite sides culturally. But I think that a retort he could have done is something along that line. I think was saying, I believe in the rule of law, or you go another way. I believe in the rule of law, and I wish you would start following the law, right? Because because then you could raise the issue of whether or not Mr. Trump has violated law and the rule of law by various things that he's done, both in his private life and through Attorney General Barr, as well as through various actions that the regime has done, that the administration has done.
All right, you are now the person running for president, and the issues are climate change, the issues are socioeconomic well-being of the entire country, the issues are social justice. How would you have framed that had you been Biden and able to speak without interruption?
Okay, I would say, Mr. Trump, in the last election, you said climate change was a hoax. Do you still? I would. One of the things I would do if I was Biden is to raise questions, is to make Trump hang himself, right? So, do you still think climate change is a hoax? 97% of all scientists think that this is real. 3% think that it might not be. You see, in the last election, you said this was a hoax. Do you still think it's a hoax? We have fires that we haven't seen. We have a hurricane level we haven't seen. Do you still think that climate change is a hoax? And notice when he brought it up, when Chris Wallace brought that up, all he talked about was like the fires, but not the other devastating impacts of climate change. We got glaciers melting, etc. So
I want to interrupt 1 second, because now that you brought up the forest floors, keep your thought, but I just want to say this for the audience. The ridiculousness of a president talking about raking the forest shows he has no mental form of proportionality of how large a forest really is, to think that you can have people that go out there and manage a forest, manage all these different areas. And that the moderator didn't just come in and say, sir, do you know how many hundreds of thousands of square acre or miles?
Hundreds of millions.
Right.
Hundreds of millions.
How do you understand what you're saying? Are you going to hire people to rake that up? I mean, it's just impossible.
Well, there's that, but there's also the case that the 57% of forest land is managed by the federal government.
Exactly.
So you have this whole thing with that as an implicit critique of state policies, when in fact most of that land is managed by the federal government, right?
Exactly.
But
continue. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just that you brought up the forest, and I wanted the audience to hear that particular narrative. Go ahead.
I got you. So I would, if I'm the other candidate, I would make Trump confront the issue of, does he still think climate change is a hoax? So that's one, to make him take a stand on that question, right? So you got corporations, you got the military, you have all these institutions which are essentially conservative institutions who have accepted the fact that climate change is human cause and is a problem. And I would say, do you disagree with all those people? So that's one issue, right? The other issue you said was the economy. So I mean, of course, the big issue that don't talk about well enough is income inequality, right? So now, what's really odd is that on some level, Trump ran on a populist message. The first time we thought that he was the working man's billionaire, supposedly. So, and the implicit notion is that he was going to foster a set of policies that would benefit working people. Well, you saw the tax cut did not do that, right? So I would have brought up, well, it turns out that this pandemic, which you say you didn't play a role in, you didn't cause it, but we can talk about your policy. That's a different part of the conversation. But it seems like it's widened income inequality. Like it was already a problem. It's been a problem the past 40 years, especially the past 10, and then especially this year. So what would you suggest that we need to do? Is, first of all, is that a problem? Is the gap between the rich and the poor, the super wealthy and the poor, is that an issue that we need to be thinking about and you need to do something about? I would suggest that it is, but I want to hear from you. So I would put it to him at that level, that we need to talk about income inequality. And what that also would do, it would help Biden with working class people, right? Because part of the weird part of Trump's support is it's a grievance by people, working class people. Some of that grievance is racialized, but some of it is implicitly a class base, and they feel like they've not gotten their fair share.
Doctor, I want to say something here, because I noticed that some of it is race, while some of it is class. I've come up with a new theory. I think it's really all class, right? I think race is the tool, but it's all class. Your thoughts on that?
I'm a really big fan. I would phrase it slightly differently. I would say that there's good research. You should check out a person by the name of Ian Henry Lopez. He wrote the book called Merge Left. And it's a recent book. And he talks about there's been some testing done about different arguments against the dog whistle politics that you sometimes see from President Trump, people like him. And basically a message that people use racism to perpetuate class warfare does better in terms of attracting more people than a message that this is all about racism or is all about class divisions. Like essentially the notion of strategic racism, which is the term we should all come to use, is something that even if you haven't heard it, like people get it. Like people, the idea that people use racism in order to enact their class suppression or class oppression.
That's what I mean. I think that's what I'm saying, right?
Right, but I'm just saying. So, but I'm just saying I would be careful of phrasing it that it's all about class, but say people use racism to keep different groups stratified, right? But I'm just saying I am agreeing with that, and in fact, there's good research that shows that message does the best against the racist dog whistle message. And again, Ian Henry Lopez, you should look him up. He's somebody you should know about.
Henry Lopez, I'll look
Ian
that
Henry
up.
Lopez. Yeah,
Ian, okay. Because, the tenet that I've always pushed, and I know we're kind of going off on a slight tangent here, but I think since you brought that up, it makes good discussion. One of the things that I've been trying to qualify is all of us have been trying to push that, many of us have been trying to push the issue that race is a social construct. And do you believe that, or?
Of course.
Okay, so
I think that's well established.
Right, if race is a social construct, then I don't see how you don't look at it otherwise. Even the implicit hate that you have within a certain group, it is something that it's a cancer that was inserted, if you will.
Right. No. I mean, yeah, I think it's well established. People who study racial issues that race is a social construct. I think it has no biological foundation. So
right.
So I think that there's broad acceptance of that among people who study it. We still need to work on the American public, but there's broad acceptance of that in the people who study it. Yeah.
Okay, so on the last,
there was a third issue, right? Because I'm just trying to make sure I covered your point.
Yes, the third. We had the climate change, we had the socioeconomic issue, and now we have the social justice issue.
So I would say there's a couple aspects of that are important to lift up. So and this I would just remind as I'm going through this that it's one thing for me to pretend to respond to as if I'm on a debate stage with Mr. Trump, right? But you would potentially have a different kind of discussion if it's the people who are listening talking to the people on the other side of the aisle in their own families and friendships. That's important to make a distinction. So, for example, if I was on the stage and I'm hearing him talk about Antifa and all this violence, I would probably point out that the studies have shown that like 93% of these protests are completely nonviolent, right? So that's a retort strategy. From a standpoint, so that's what I was doing in the debate context. And for that matter, Trump's own administration is telling us that most of the violence, the violence of society is on the right?
Right.
So that's what I would say from a debate standpoint. But from a standpoint of if the listeners to this show, your esteemed fans, it's really a question. You're talking to someone on the other side, you want to raise the question, what do we know about what portion of these events, the portion of these protests that are violent? What do we know from the government about where's the threat coming from the right or the left? That's an important thing to bring up as a question. Part of what we want to do from a dialogue standpoint is to fundamentally thing we want to do is to raise questions about people's experience, right? Because that gives you a whole different conversation. We talk about people's experiences as opposed to their thoughts. It's a different kind of a connected conversation. But even when you get to analysis of the world, you want to find a way to raise what do we know about this? What do we know about where these protests, how violent they are, or where the threat comes from, et cetera. So, but if I'm on the stage, then I'm not coming to what we know. I'm trying to slam him. I'm having a different tactic in the conversation.
Well, look, I appreciate you speaking to me. The last question I always ask my subject is, what did I not ask you that you would have wished I asked you?
I wish you would ask me the keys to dialogue, the keys to turning a moment of disconnect to a moment of dialogue, because I spent thinking about that. So I'll break that out briefly. Again, people can learn about me at thedialoguecompany.com. The keys to turning a moment of difficulty, moment of dialogue, there's really 4 steps. One, you need to, and I describe these as something called the reach method. So You got to calm down, right? That's a critical thing if you want to turn the moment, disconnect the moment of dialogue. Calm down. I call that the reflect step. You got to ask questions, because the best way to get somebody to listen to you is to listen to them first. So you got to ask questions, preferably to get them to talk about an experience. I call that's E-R-E. Then you want to ask, you want to agree and confess. You want to let them know that you give them acceptance, so their point of view is not crazy, and you confess to feeling like that at some point. There's some truth in what they're saying. So R-E-A-C, and then the last word is harmonize. You want to try to link together. You want to offer them some expanded view to have them think that what they think is not crazy, but there's a new way of thinking about it. What does that mean? Add up to the reach method, right? So you're trying to reach them. So it's important to take those 4 steps and to consciously manage the conversation so that the conversation does go from disconnect to dialogue.
And I must say that concept works perfectly. I've been working on that with the Coffee Party and other organizations for a long time, doing that very well. Dr. David Campt, it was my pleasure having you on Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for having been here.
Thank you so much.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed Dr. David Campt. There's something that flashed out to me, 2 things from Masticator. And I think it's important because, like I said, we also have quite a few conservatives that listen to most of them just listen to the show, and some people will send me little notes in the mail, but we have folks like Masticator and Temp28 that they're pretty active in the chat, and I love that. Thank you so kindly for doing that. Masticator said, so Egberto, it is possible to manage forests, but it is impossible to manage forests, but bureaucrats can manage a complex economy. Yeah, okay. Actually, the forest is quite a bit more complicated than the economy. The forest is something that is worldwide, been here all along. We don't control the way, in fact, we don't control all the different permutations that can occur with living organisms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one point. An economy was created by person. In this case, our economic system, the capitalist system, was created by man. All its intricacies within the capitalist system was created by man. The permutations that occur because different people react to different things that cause them to behave differently within an economic system, that can be modeled. And in modeling that, we have done a very good job of modeling economic systems. That is pretty much how we know the capitalist system cannot survive. Okay? Now, you won't see those models come out in open air or anything like that. You'd have to talk to people like Richard Wolff or others that can show those lines as one particular line going to infinity, the other one goes near zero. I mean, if you studied differential equations and that kind of stuff, you'd understand these mathematical features, my brother. So my statement stands. An economic system is currently man-made. Maybe if it were women-made, it would be better, but it's man-made, and it's a terrible, the current one that runs the Western world, while it created a lot of wealth for some, while it built a lot of stuff for people that looks beautiful, most things in that economic system, most people cannot take advantage of. So let's kind of remember those things before we get to, before we try to get any kind of gotchas. There's another thing that Masticator said that I wanted to touch on because I think it's a teaching moment. And Masticator, I hope you're still here. Because I know this statement that you made here, I know where it comes from. I know that it has a lot to do with how you were reared and also how the dog whistles have gone through our system. So whereas a lot of people take offense to these types of statements, I use it as a reason to enlighten many others. Because it is a common thought that many think you are brave enough to say it, but many do think it. So if I can now answer what you've said, maybe we can have a better country where we can all get rid of all the stereotypes that are not factual. You said, Masticator, LOL, talking about my guest who is a doctor who happens to be black. You said, LOL, this doctor was obviously an affirmative action quota in university. Let's stop there. You know absolutely nothing about this guy's education, but you assume because of his hue, you know that he was only there because of affirmative action. Then you state, he clearly has little ability to think logically. Well, to me and to many others, including Breach MCP, who suggested that he gives advice to Biden, seems to me like many here, not necessarily you, but others here, think that he is a logical thinker. Then you say, notice how everything he says is conjecture. I don't think I've ever heard you say that about Donald Trump and his conjecture about, even though there's no evidence of large-scale mail ballot kind of any kind of forgery or any kind of mail ballot fraud, he has a conjecture that that is the case. But I don't think I've ever heard any one of you on the right make that statement. But you clearly assume Dr. Campt was an affirmative action at the university because you think he doesn't think logically because of what he has said, when in turn you don't look at the president with a negative point of view of his illogical thinking. So what I'm trying to say, there's a good possibility that Mr. Campt was a affirmative hire. There's a good, I tell you a quick little story, and I want to tell this story because it's important. I got hired by many companies when I got out of college. I got hired by a particular company in Houston that the vice president of the division called me into the office, and he said my boss liked me, and they really wanted me hired. And he said, you have 6 months to do this, to prove myself. And if I don't prove myself in 6 months when I'm laid off or let go, he doesn't want to hear a damn thing about affirmative action. My 6-month project, it was a project that was out for 6 months. I did that project in 2 months. It was designing, modifying a part of a login system that goes into an oil well. It was done in a 6-month project I finished in 6 months. 2 months, a 6-month project I did in 2 months. The reason I'm saying this is when people would tell me, you're just here because of affirmative action as an engineer, I took offense to that. I got pissed off at that. You're saying I am not knowledgeable for this. I did that damn 6-month project in 2 months. But the truth is, when I think back, now that I'm a more logical thinker, now that I'm older, now that I can be peaceful in the way that I think, now that I don't hold you accountable for those bad things that you talk about, Masticator, for those racist comments that you make, Masticator. I'm not calling you a racist. I'm saying the comments you're making are. What I'm saying here is simple. I was probably hired as an affirmative action person. That was not mutually exclusive to me knowing the material. What is the reality that absent affirmative action, there's a good chance that company would have never gotten the chance to understand that I knew the job, that I was damn good at the job. Because just because of my hue, I would not have gotten that opportunity. So whereas you may use affirmative action and quota as a pejorative for Mr. Campt, the reality is whether that is true or not is immaterial, because the product of that university was a successful human being with his own company, with his own policy, with the things that he does. He got afforded the right to do something that otherwise may have been denied him in this country. So I hope, Mr. Masticator, you understand that with the civility with which I discussed it, and not only that, with the lack of anchor that I actually told you. All right, let me go down back to the middle to see if anybody else is here. Okay. Michael Wren, screw that. If someone repeats racist comments more than once, then they're... Yeah, I hear you, brother. I hear you. Okay, DJ Skid says, found that over 175 current and former law enforcement members are endorsing Biden, therefore come for Trump's claim of no law. You know, if Trump's mouth is moving, Trump is lying. Okay, remember that. If Trump's mouth is moving, Trump is lying. That's all you got to remember. That's all you have to remember. Okay, I want to welcome all my wonderful people in here. Welcome aboard, Mike. Paul Fleming was the first one to check in. Welcome aboard, Paul Fleming, Michael Rodnan AVQ, Bruce Pollard, Paul Fleming, let's see, Bridge MCP, Linda E. And Linda E, thank you so kindly for being a patron, and thank you so kindly for purchasing the new book as well. I have the greatest supporters. I have the greatest watchers, listeners, all of that, because you all give me the energy to produce. The reason I'm doing these 16 hours a day, man, is it's like I love it. Why? Because we are all together. We are all really making a difference. Bridge MCP, welcome aboard. I got you already, Paul Fleming. I'm not going to call you twice. Tank 28. Tank, let me talk about Antifa. It is important that you're factual. Antifa is not any organization. There's not an organization called Antifa or anything like that. Antifa is sort of an ideology, an anti-fascist ideology. And people would do things and then name Antifa. I'm anti-fascist. Okay? That's all I'm saying. That is the reality. And if you look at Donald Trump's FBI, Donald Trump FBI says that most of the terrorism in this country comes from right-wing groups. That's just a fact. Okay, I called out Tank 28. Let me go ahead and call out, let's see who else is here. Wow, a lot of people. Masticator, welcome aboard. I got Paul already. Let's see who else is. Pamela Mattox, welcome aboard. Let's see. Linda E, I think I called you out. Who else is here? I'm kind of scrolling down fast. We have 100 and something messages in here. Let's see. Bear with me. If I forget you, just drop a line in the box. Lee Grant, welcome aboard, brother. Let's see. Ted Renaldo, welcome aboard. Is that a new right-wing person I got? Ted, keep coming, Ted. I want you to keep being a member of our group as well, brother. Let's see. So that's Ted Reynaldo. Deborah John, welcome aboard. Who else is here? If I'm not calling you, just send a quick message underneath. I want to call you out. I like to show that respect to the people who have given me the honor of listening. Okay, let's see who else is here. DJ Skids, welcome aboard. Who else is here? I got Roberto Luis, mi panameño favorito. Bienvenido, hermano. Okay, that's welcoming he's my Panamanian brother. We play music together. So, hey, what can I say? And he's wishing a happy birthday to Linda, my wife. Thank you very much, hermano. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, hermano. All right, let's see. Becca says, 20,000 plus false or misleading claims. Yeah, that is true. All right, we are at the end of the program. I went about a minute too far. I just want to put my link to the book one more time because I really need you to become, first, I needed to get the books. That is the link that I just put in the screen. And please consider becoming patrons if you're on YouTube. Please click on that join button. We need members. We're going to have a big thing on October 3rd where our members will have access to, we're going to sort of do some, that's exactly 1 month before the election. So I want to do something. Michael Rudden, thanks for having been here, brother. So go ahead and get the book. And also, if you want to join that YouTube and you're not on, you can join at YouTube. If you're on YouTube right now, just click the join button. If you're not on YouTube, I just put go to politicsdoneright.com/YouTube. And to become a patron, go to politicsdoneright.com/patron. Thank you so kindly, guys, for having been here. Love you all. Share the shows. Share everything. Tell people about the show. Tell people to come on, and let's go ahead and thank you, Bridge MCP. Thank you so kindly. So tell people to come on, and let's do this stuff together. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number 1, subscribe to our channel, and number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.